Law journeys are inspirational stories of motivation, resilience, and success. And today I have the distinct privilege of talking with Eduardo Lamas about his unique journey to becoming a lawyer. And Eduardo, thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Of course. So, Eduardo, let's start with what you're doing now, what your current position is, and the legal work that you do. And then, as I always do, we'll take it back and see how that journey unfolded.
So right now, I'm an in-house counsel for this global company that you may already know, Under Armour. The sports brand company. We're based in Baltimore, but we have presence globally. So I'm part of the commercial legal team. I oversee all legal matters throughout Latin America, as well as global supply, regardless of the country, and vendors, North America, distribution, logistics, and transportation.
So I haven't had a chance to really interview anyone who's an in-house counsel role. So for those who might not be as familiar with it, can you talk a little bit about what it means to be in-house counsel and how that might differ from, working at a firm and your role in that regard?
Yes, when you work as in-house counsel, it's about the business as well, not just the law. Now you're mixing both worlds. The best for me because I love business, but I also love law. So you got to take risks. You got to think. You got to know the business. You got to know the product in order to negotiate contracts, negotiate transactions, or negotiate with other your counterparties. So not just about the law, but also about the business. So I would say that the big difference or the main difference here between outside counsel and in-house counsel is knowing the business.
That makes a lot of sense. And I'm sure for your particular company, having an interest in sports doesn't hurt.
Exactly. That's even better. When I got hired, I was very excited. When I applied to the position, I was very excited because I love sports and I like the brand. So it was great.
Yeah. So Eduardo, there's a lot of your journey that I want to make sure we get into. And let's start at the beginning. And by that, what I'm really talking about is the first time, the first moment when you thought about becoming a lawyer and how your law journey started. And then we'll just kind of take it chronologically from there.
Absolutely. So as you already know, I'm from Mexico. So I was born and raised in Mexico. That's where everything started. So one of my, no one in my family is a lawyer, but there was someone, a political uncle. He was, or he still is, a district lawyer, district judge. So that was my first motivation. I was like, I look at him, always stressed, looking good, making good money. So I was interested, and I was a kid. So that I kept that in my mind. I was like, okay, that looks cool, but I hadn't decided to become a lawyer yet. So then I was coming back and forth between the U.S. and Mexico. My parents are divorced. So my dad was living in the U.S. in California specifically. So I was just visiting, and he was trying to convince me to stay in the U.S. I did middle school in the U.S. in California. So after graduating, I didn't want to stay. I wanted to go back to Mexico. So I did. And then my dad was always trying to convince me. So I didn't want to be in the U.S. So in order to stay in Mexico, I was 18 years old back then. So I had to decide. I had to offer something in exchange. I had to bargain with my dad. So I offered. You know what? My uncle, he's a district judge, so I want to be a lawyer. So I'm going to start. I'm not going to the U.S. I'm staying here, but I'm going to start a legal career, and I'm going to try to be successful. So that was a time when I decided to become a lawyer.
Eduardo, how much had you talked to your uncle by that time about what it means to be a lawyer, what the process was like in Mexico to become a lawyer?
Not much. I didn't know a lot because he started as a litigator and then became a judge. So nothing. I mean, we didn't have that much of contact. So nothing. I just needed to do something. I would feel attracted to the lawyer profession, and I started.
So at 18 in Mexico, I have no familiarity with what
Yeah.
that the higher education process is, or the path to becoming a lawyer in Mexico. Could you talk about then, so what your steps were?
That's a great question because you graduate from high school and you go directly to university to your any professional degree. So you don't go to college as you do in the U.S. So that's good. You're younger when you graduate from law school. So I started when I was 18, 19, because I'm 35 right now, 1988 from December. So it's always like I was 18, 19 because I started in July, turned 19 in December, but I was within the same first year of law school. So yes, you start from there and you graduate in 4 years. In 4 years.
So you are pursuing, your legal degree, if you will, if I don't know if that's the right way to describe it. During that time, were there any mentors or resources that you relied on that really supported you at that stage of your journey?
Yes, when I was in, we had semesters. So it was 8 semesters, 4 years. So in third semester, I met one of my professors, civil procedure professor. He was a great inspiration. He was great. He was the best professor I had in Mexico. So he also had a law firm. So he invited me to practice, to learn. So I was always ahead with my classmates because I was already learning the stuff, the practice, not just the classes and theory and all that. I was actually practicing. So that would be one of the greatest options that I had at that time, and one of the ways I started learning early.
And so you finish your university studies, and then what happens next? Is there an equivalent of a bar exam? What's the next phase?
Yeah, there's a bar exam much easier than the U.S. bar exam. So I passed. I basically had like 95 of 100. So I passed, super passed the exam, and I got licensed in 2013, and then I started practicing as an associate for a law firm, civil matters. And then one of our clients was Modelo Group, the beer company. So they invited me to become an in-house counsel for them. So I went through the process, the interviewing process, and I became an in-house counsel for that company.
So you even had in-house experience, as we'll talk about. You had more,
Right.
but in fact, Under Armour was not your first in-house experience.
Not at all. I'm basically 95 or 99% in-house.
So you're practicing law in Mexico. You got an in-house position. I'm jumping ahead, but at some point you make the decision to come back to the United States. Can you talk about how that decision arose and then how you implemented that plan?
Yes, lack of opportunities. Unfortunately, I didn't. I was trying to, I was looking for professional growth within the company, Grupo Modelo, but I couldn't get anything. So I tried to find something outside that company, but still, I didn't see a lot of opportunities. I started watching Suits, so that became a good inspiration. I was like, what, I want to be like Harvey Specter, so I'm gonna try to go to the U.S. My dad was living in California. Fortunately, my legal status wasn't an issue. I was a legal permanent resident already, so that wasn't going to be an issue. So that's when I resigned from Grupo Modelo, and I moved to California. I didn't even know that I was going to go to Loyola yet. I was just, I'll figure it out. But I need to take the risk.
So you, as you said, take the risk. You moved to California, and then you decided at some point to pursue an LLM. degree,
Right.
which, obviously we know you did it at Loyola, but can you just, for folks who may not be as familiar with it, talk about what the LLM is and why you decided to actually pursue that LLM degree?
But in my case, I was a licensed lawyer in Mexico, but still, I think it was a great experience, and I think it was essential to complete the LLM because that was my first exposure to the legal system in the U.S. Because obviously it's totally different. It's common law. It's not a civilian system. So I need something to start with, even if I wasn't required to have an LLM. I found it very helpful to start an LLM. So that's why I recommend to, even if it's not required, to take an LLM before taking the bar exam.
And it's really important for anybody who's pursuing this route, right? Of being a licensed attorney in another country, trying to become a licensed attorney in the United States, and whatever the state happens to be, to make sure to check the requirements and understand whether that LLM is required, or are there any other additional educational requirements? And it can be jurisdiction specific, right? So California may have its own, other states may have their own. So it's very important for anybody who's thinking about making that move
Right.
to check it out. One of the things that is undeniable, though, is by pursuing the LLM, you have an opportunity to take courses that are taught in the same system, right, that the bar is going to test on, and then also subject matters that are covered, on the California bar exam or presumably the other bar exams. Can you just very briefly describe what it is that you took in the LLM program and how you feel like that prepared you then to go forward with the California bar?
Yes, I mean, at first I was terrified because I was gonna start a new journey in the U.S. By starting the LLM. I knew that the Socratic method, very scary because I wasn't used to that, and especially not native speaker. Uh, but yeah, and regarding the bar exam, yes, that was my plan, but it was my nemesis. It was like, oh man, when I took a look at the sample answers or model answers from the bar, I was terrified. I was like, I, I don't imagine myself drafting this under pressure conditions. So I was terrified. I was just kicking the the can as much as I could. So I was like, let's start from the beginning, step by step. So my first step, I was like, I want to feel comfortable, so I'm gonna pick a specialization regardless of the subjects. I know that I should have taken constitutional law, civil procedure, the big ones, real property. But I was like, no, just gonna take the ones that relate to my specialization, just in case I go back to Mexico. So I took a specialization in international business law. So I took contracts, business associations, that includes agency and corporations, but that was it. I mean, from the bar, I took other subjects, but not related to the bar exam. So I just took it. I mean, if I could provide an advice to someone that comes from another country, I would definitely recommend to take bar subjects because it makes it easier to pass the bar.
The LLM program typically is 1 year. And so you complete that, you've got your specialization, and included some bar courses, certainly contracts and all that. So you
Yeah.
graduate with your LLM, and just situate us in terms of what year it is, and then what your next step after that was.
So it was 2018. So I was part of 2017, 2018. So I graduated about May 2018. So I was ready to work, but it wasn't easy. I thought it was going to be easier. I thought it was like, no, I'm not. I have an LLM now, so I'm just going to go out with my LATAM experience. I'm going to get something pretty quick. I start as a paralegal, doesn't matter, and then I make some money, and then save some money, and then take the bar. That was my plan. So I thought it was going to happen that way, but no, it happened the opposite. I couldn't find anything. So the only job I found, it was as a law clerk, like summer law clerk for Armenian law firm, a PI law firm, personal injury law firm, located in Encino. I was living in Long Beach, so it's a long way, and I didn't have a car. So I had to borrow my dad's car and my brother's car. So, and when they couldn't loan me the car, so I had to get a rental from my salary. And I basically spent my whole check in renting cars to go work for this law firm as a law clerk. But I took the risk, and I thought that it was worth, I mean, the investment was worth it.
Eduardo, one of the things that's clear from what you just described, and other things we're going to get into here, is really a level of persistence, resilience, and I want to get into the other instances of it. But can you talk a little bit, Eduardo, about how you developed that, right? The willingness to take chances, like to come to the United States, California specifically, and then you took a position that was geographically undesirable, right? You're in Long Beach and you got to commute to Encino, and you're doing your best to make it work. Where does that come from for you? Where does that ability to sort of bet on yourself and just do what's necessary to make things happen? Do you know where that comes from for you?
I think for my dad, he's a cyclist, so he's very persistent in sports. So I think that, I mean, that part came from him. But also, I couldn't go back. I mean, I could, but it was like quitting. Like I didn't want to chicken out, you know? So I was like, I can't go back. I mean, I thought about it, and I actually almost quit, but I didn't. I just knew that I had to keep walking, and having my polar star. I had that direction. I didn't know how I was gonna get there, but I knew I was gonna get there. Like obstacles, you muscle through barriers, all the obstacles that I had. So I just knew in myself, I trusted myself, and I knew that I had to keep going.
That's a very powerful message for folks to keep in mind for themselves. And let's talk about how that evolved then. So you had the law clerk position in Encino, difficult getting there all the time, costly to do so. What happened next?
So I knew I had to find something better. I tried to interview with other law firms. I interviewed with one, but the hiring manager told me, you know what, you don't have experience in the U.S. So no one is going to hire you without experience in the U.S. You got plenty of experience in Latin, but not here. So I was like, oh, disappointed. I was sad, but I was like, no, I'm going to prove this guy that I'll be able to get another job and a better one. So I took advantage of my Latin experience. I put that in my resume, tried to highlight that my experience in Latin America to get a job that might require someone bilingual, might require someone with experience in Latin, because we have a lot of companies that want to expand to other countries, right? So I took leverage of that and put in the resume, improved my resume, and I started applying. So I found a better job as a corporate paralegal for a startup company, a tech company that wanted some expansions in Mexico and other Latin American countries. So they hired me. So I went to making $15 an hour to $30 an hour, which was great for me because I didn't have a lot of expenses. So yeah, that was and I was able to work remotely, so no more long commute.
Yeah, no more needing to borrow or rent a car,
Exactly.
better salary. And so now you have this position, and just to make sure we're on the same page, that you haven't yet taken the bar exam. So you're doing these things with your prior experience as an attorney in Mexico and also your LLM degree. So is there a point when you decide to take the bar exam, and if so, what motivated that decision?
I was scared. Same, my nemesis, kicking the can. I was like just avoiding the bar. So I was like, no, I'll make money first and I'll start my career as a paralegal. But I was scared, to be honest. Not, I didn't, I want to be a lawyer, but I was scared. So so 3 months later, they didn't renew my contract. So I was like, oh man, what am I going to do now? So I ran out of options. I needed to keep working. So unemployed now. But I think that was the best thing that happened to me, because I was able to start a real plan to now pass the bar. No more kicking the can. I needed to pass the bar to become a lawyer and have better opportunities. So that's when I decided to take the California bar exam, studied for 2 months, November, December, November, starting in November, and then it was a February exam, so 3 months or so. So I had some money saved, so I paid for the fees, the bar fees, and the legal course, Themis, and they give you 2 chances to pass, same pricing. So yeah, I started studying, and without any first time seeing all civil procedure stuff and constitutional law and all that. But yeah.
Couple quick things to follow up on. One, as you said earlier, probably wouldn't be the recommended course of action for people to find out what civil procedure is like for the first time while studying for the bar,
Right.
or some of those other subjects. So you had mentioned that, it can be beneficial to get prior exposure to those subjects. And that's a little more unique to someone in your position doing a 1-year LLM, whereas someone coming, to law school as a JD student, those are required courses. So definitely I see that as a challenge. But something else I wanted to focus on that you noted was, not getting that contract renewed was a blow, was a difficult thing to deal with. And in life, we're confronted with those moments, right? Whether they're failures or just, hurdles that come up, and you kind of have a choice. And, certainly be disappointed, be frustrated. But, for you, it was then that final motivator to confront your nemesis, the bar exam. And obviously, because we started this story, this journey with where you are now, we know you succeeded. But it's important, I think, that we all note that, yeah, these things happen and they are difficult. They're challenging, and I'm not minimizing that. But a lot more is determined by how you respond to those circumstances. And so you confronted your nemesis, you took the February bar, and let's pick up the story from there.
Yes, again, I thought it was going to be easier, even if it was my nemesis. I was like, no, I studied 3 months. I think I'm going to be good. I'm going to pass, and then I'm going to get a job right after. No. So when I finished the exam, I had hope that I had passed, but now I needed to wait for the results, right? They don't come right after. So now it was like jobless. So let's start looking for something, whatever. So that's when I decided, I'm gonna get a car from a dealership and I'm gonna start Ubering. That was my only option until the results come out. Of course, in the meantime, trying to get a law job, right? Law related. So I started Ubering, waited for the bar results, and then when they came out, down. No, 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 no. That the name does not appear on the pass list. I remember, if I remember correctly. So yes, I didn't see my name on the pass list. So I was disappointed, discouraged. Was almost, I almost dropped. Tried to quit again, but I was like, no, man, let's keep going. I think I built something here. I didn't pass for some points, so by some point. So I was like, you know what? I think my second try I'll pass. So I rebuilt the plan, and I was like, I'm gonna keep driving as Uber to keep it flexible. I'm gonna drive in the mornings, study in the afternoons tonight, and I did that for another 2-3 months for the July bar.
It says a lot about you, Eduardo, that you were, willing to sort of pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and give it another run. You still needed to make some money, but it sounds like you came up with a plan to structure your time so that you would still have sufficient time to study while, being able to make, some money to help support yourself during that time.
Right.
What was it like the second time taking the bar, and, how did things evolve after that?
Yes, so I took the same Themis course. I didn't watch the lectures anymore, but more based on the outlines and flashcards. I bought some flashcards, so I started storing making my own flashcards. So actually, a fun fact, I'm not pretty safe, but I was always waiting for a client while Ubering, I was reading my flashcards, and then when the app showed me a client, so I kept driving and watching the flashcards. Not safe, not recommended. Don't do that. But I just didn't want to lose the moment, because I was trying to learn the tricky laws that comes, or the tricky questions that you see in the bar exam. So yeah, it was. But when I took the bar the second time, it was much easier. I mean, I felt completely confident that I had passed the writing portion and the MBs. So yeah, I feel comfortable because I had built, like the how you call it, the essential aspects of the questions in that first try. So yeah, this second time felt great and passed.
So obviously that's a huge accomplishment for anybody to pass the bar, and you did it despite English not being your first language, which is something like there's no way I would ever take a bar exam in another language. I found it hard enough in my own language. But congratulations, you did it. So you passed the bar, and if that was the July bar, you find out in November-ish time frame, right? So let's pick up there. So you now, you're officially, you're licensed to practice in California. What happens next?
Yeah, so when the results came out, and I mean they came out on a Friday, so I didn't want to check the results that day. I was like, no, I want to sleep, so I don't want to check them. So I waited until the next day, and then I checked them, and I was very happy when I saw that the name that you inserted appears on the pass list. So I was very happy, but then what, right? You asked that question. So now I modified my resume. Now I passed the bar. Now I'm able to practice in California. Just I needed to sworn in and all that, but that's basic. That was basic. So yeah, I started applying to other positions. That's lawyer positions, but no, it wasn't easy. And I still needed to make money, so I kept driving as Uber while licensed in California. So, but yeah, it was frustrating. Frustrating, and it took me from November to February of the following year, which was 2020, just before the pandemic. So I was able to secure a job, an attorney job back then.
That's incredible timing because we all know how disruptive the pandemic was. And so this attorney position that you got in February, what type of position was it? And then, how did you end up where you are now at Under Armour from that position?
Yeah, so in that position, it was a finance company, some investments and all that. So I was part of course, of the legal department. I was an associate general counsel, not very small legal department, just like 35 attorneys. So I review a lot of contracts with insurance companies. I drafted some court orders that you have to prepare for the court, and it was a national company, nothing international. So yeah, that's what I did in that position. But still, I wanted more because I thought that I deserve more now with my experience, and now with being a lawyer of California. So kept looking, and I found this position not Under Armour, that came later, but this company, HM Claus, it's a global company, global presence. So they need a lawyer with Latin experience. So that was great for me. They wanted someone with great experience in Latin America for the operations in Latin America. So I got hired, needed to relocate from Los Angeles to Sacramento. So I relocated and started working for this company. I was based in Davis, California.
And you're in that company for a while. It was, another in-house position. Sounds like you were doing somewhat similar types of work involving, contracts. Is that accurate?
Yes, all commercial, but I was a generalist. So a small department still. We were 4 lawyers and 2 paralegals. So yes, I was in charge of contracts, transactions, things like that, but also other areas of law, especially in Latin America, employment, labor, corporate, you name it.
One of the things that stands out to me, Eduardo, is that you have successfully leveraged an important advantage that you have, which is both your experience in Latin America, but also your language skills. To be, as much as it might have been hard to take a bar exam in a foreign language, the fact that you are a fluent Spanish speaker, I think makes you a very important asset to companies, even law firms, it would be because of that. And, you've managed to, as I think you said, you sort of highlighted that in your resume and made that an important feature of what you add beyond just your skill and experience as a lawyer. So I think that's important. And so then let's jump ahead. How did the Under Armour position come about?
So that's a great question. So I wasn't tired of LATAM, but I didn't want to be the LATAM lawyer all the time because I was in the U.S. Took me a lot of effort to pass the bar, a U.S. bar. So I wanted more exposure to the U.S. law and other countries besides LATAM. So I saw a great position opportunity, the one that I have now at Under Armour. They wanted a lawyer with experience in Latin America, but as well taking care of global contracts, global supply, logistics, all of that, and vendors in the U.S. related to logistics. So that was like, this is the best of both worlds, LATAM, but also the U.S. and global exposure. So I applied to that position. It took like 1 month for them to call me, but finally the call came. They told me, we know you live in California, but right now so we have some budget restrictions and no relocation support. So I was like, you want to keep going with the process? So I was like, yes, doesn't matter. Let's go. Doesn't matter. I was thinking in my head, no, I'll convince them when I get the offer. I'll negotiate later. First get the offer. So yes, I went through all the interviews and all that. The offer came and no relocation. I tried to bargain that, but no relocation. So I relocated from California all the way to Baltimore, and that's where I'm here.
Although I think that was absolutely the right plan, right? To get the offer first and then, try and worry about it on the back end. It didn't work out, but I don't think it's a big leap for me to say you don't have any regrets about the decision you made.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. So from the compensation aspect to the professional growth, not at all.
Eduardo, we've talked about really an amazing arc for you from, starting off in Mexico and, being in California for a bit of time, middle school and back in Mexico, and then coming here to California again. And now obviously you're in Baltimore. Eduardo, what do you think of when you think of your journey and, this sort of path that you've been on to where you are now? What does it mean to you and how would you describe it?
I mean, I don't believe it sometimes. I look back and they really go through all that. I mean, all those obstacles. I don't know. I don't even know how I did it. So I just kept trying. Resilience, of course, I feel proud of myself. Persistence, my consistency. I was very disciplined too because when I was studying for the bar, I told you, I didn't have a place to study. My place was Starbucks. I always smelled like coffee from the morning to night. Hey, we're closing. Get out of here. That was my place. So it was very tough, to be honest. But for those reasons, I feel very proud of myself. So I would just tell everyone that nothing, of course, nothing realistic is impossible, right? You have to be realistic. Um, you have to, identify your weaknesses as well, but take leverage of your strengths. So my weaknesses, of course, was my lack of experience in the U.S. But my strength was I was bilingual and I had Latin experience. So I took advantage of that. Forget about U.S. for now. I went to practice in the U.S. U.S. matters, but I needed to forget about that at that moment. And now I practice legal matters now. I mean, U.S. legal matters now. So it will happen eventually if you keep going. But first, you have to convince them to hire you and take advantage of your strengths.
And one of the other things that you didn't mention in your list of skills is your persistence, right? Is your willingness to bet on yourself, to take chances, I think it was responsible chances, right? You had family in California, so you had a place to stay, but in all the things you described, right, you extended yourself, you took a chance, you in effect bet on yourself, and you relied on not only your skills and experience, but your internal discipline, and you have resilience, and that's an important part of, I think, any person's journey. And I'm just so appreciative, Eduardo, of the time that you spent sharing your story. I think it will resonate with lots of people. They don't necessarily have to be changing countries to see how the kinds of experiences you've had are relevant for them in pursuing their own journey. And so again, I'm just so appreciative of your time, and I hope we'll be able to check in again and see where the things evolve for you at Under Armour.
Absolutely, absolutely. A great pleasure. Thanks for the invite and hope to see you soon in person.